was September 9th, 1980, evening. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, the sea was raging with towering waves. Dark clouds had gathered across the sky, and far away, flashes of lightning tore through the endless blackness. Amid the roar of the storm and the depths of the sea, a massive British ship was making its final voyage, and that ship was MV Derbyshire. 42 people, one captain, and a journey that was soon to turn into an endless odyssey lost to time. This was no ordinary ship. It was one of Britain's pride, the glorious Bridge-class OBO carrier, a vessel so massive that its 9 cargo holds were as tall as a 7-story building. Built from 170,000 tons of steel and power, it was believed to be the world's most reliable, unbreakable, and unsinkable cargo ship, just like the Titanic of 1912. According to official records, the ship set sail on July 11, 1980, from Sept-Îles, Quebec, Canada, bound for Kawasaki, Japan, carrying 157,446 tons of iron ore and 42 crew members on board. In the early days, the voyage went smoothly. The 47-year-old Captain Geoffrey Underhill was a highly experienced seafarer, but on the night of September 9th, he had no idea that this indestructible fortress of steel was heading straight into Typhoon Orchid, a monstrous storm that, within hours, would swallow every bolt, every weld, and every hope aboard that ship. For 3 days, the captain had been receiving conflicting weather reports. Some said the typhoon had changed course, others that it had weakened. Believing the danger had passed, he decided to proceed onward. And then, that night, something happened that left the whole world stunned. In the midst of the storm, the ship vanished overnight. Despite 6 days of desperate attempts to contact it, not a single voice came through from any of the 42 people on board. By the time an official missing report was filed on September 15th, it was already too late. No wreckage was found, no lifeboats, nothing. A massive ship had disappeared into the ocean without leaving even a trace. But how could that be possible? How could such a gigantic vessel vanish overnight? What really happened aboard the Derbyshire that night? And where did the captain and his crew of 42 souls disappear to? Today we uncover the terrifying story of that ship, a story that emerged 14 years later, and one far darker and more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Friends, the MV Derbyshire was a British OBO, an ore-bulk oil combination carrier built in 1976 by the Swan Hunter Ship Company. It was the last ship of their Bridge-class Sextet series, entering service in June 1976. Originally, it was named Liverpool Bridge, but in 1978, the name was changed to MV Derbyshire. Twice the size of the Titanic, and as tall as a 16-story building, this ship was considered nothing short of a steel fortress. Because of its strong build quality, advanced radar systems, gyro compass, and modern radio equipment, it was hailed as unbreakable and unsinkable. That's why, for the first 6 days after it disappeared, no one believed it could have possibly sunk. On September 15th, an international search operation was launched. Aircraft and naval ships scoured the area, but all they found was endless water, no debris, no lifeboats, no bodies. Officials concluded that the ship must have sunk during the typhoon, making recovery impossible. But the families of the missing crew refused to believe that explanation. They were convinced the truth was being hidden from them, because a ship that enormous couldn't just vanish without a single trace. Meanwhile, troubling incidents involving the Derbyshire's sister ships began to surface. In 1982, the Liverpool Bridge, another ship from the same class, was caught in a storm and suffered severe stress cracks in its superstructure. The captain had to evacuate the crew. Then in 1986, the Kowloon Bridge broke apart in the Atlantic Ocean, split in two by powerful waves and a weakened hull. These incidents exposed a grim reality. The entire Bridge-class series had structural defects. The Derbyshire disaster wasn't an isolated case. It was a design flaw shared by all its sister ships. An inquiry was launched in 1989, but it yielded little progress, and the company was ultimately given a clean chit. Families were outraged. The mystery of that night, the roar of Typhoon Orchid, the unanswered questions still haunted them. They felt as though the government was hiding something, but beyond waiting for a miracle, they could do nothing. And then, in 1994, that miracle happened when a team from the International Transport Federation, ITF, finally discovered the wreckage of the MV Derbyshire. For 14 long years, since that fateful night in September 1980, the families of the Derbyshire crew had lived with endless questions and unbearable restlessness. 42 sailors and their loved ones had vanished forever into the depths of the sea. No one had ever imagined that such a massive and seemingly indestructible ship could meet such a swift and unimaginable end. But after years of relentless efforts by the families and with the help of the International Transport Workers Federation, ITF, a special expedition was finally launched in 1994. The team was sent to the very coordinates where the Derbyshire had last made radio contact. The ocean there was nearly 4 kilometers deep, and after so many years, no one really expected to find anything. Yet, using modern technology, remote-controlled underwater vehicles, and sonar imaging, the ITF team located the wreck in just 23 hours. That wreckage wasn't just a pile of twisted metal, it was the silent storyteller of that terrifying night. It held within it the last moments, the last struggle, and the final cries of those 42 souls who had been aboard. And when experts first saw the ship's forward section, they were horrified. Nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to see. On the night of September 9th, 1980, MV Derbyshire was sailing calmly over the ocean's surface, but within minutes, the ship began to shudder violently. Captain Geoffrey Underhill noticed the disturbance and personally inspected the vessel, yet found no visible fault. However, when he tried to contact the nearest control center via radio, the signal didn't go through. That was the first sign that something was wrong. Gradually, the ship began to fail from within. Still, the captain remained confident. He believed that no matter what happened, this ship could not sink. But soon, the darkness erupted. The typhoon struck with full force, and Derbyshire was surrounded on all sides by roaring winds and monstrous waves. Within minutes, all controls on the ship failed. The sea unleashed its fury, blasting the decks with torrents of water and hurricane-force gusts. The crew panicked. No one could understand what was happening. They scrambled to save themselves, their only hope being the lifeboats. But before they could even launch them, the ship began to sink. Chaos spread. Men ran across the tilting deck. Some jumped into the raging ocean. Others clung to hope and prayed. But within a single minute, Derbyshire was swallowed whole by the sea. Screams echoed in the storm, and one by one, the voices disappeared. The unbreakable ship had broken. Its forward hatch, nearly the size of a tennis court, had collapsed under the immense pressure of the waves, letting thousands of tons of seawater rush inside. The ship's front section began to flood, followed by the second and third hatches, each failure adding more pressure on the structure. Soon, the Derbyshire's forward hull was fatally weakened. The engine rooms and lower tanks flooded rapidly, and with every new wave, the ship was pushed deeper into the abyss. The captain didn't know that his ship was already dying beneath him. He still believed it could survive, but the truth was far worse. During the investigation, experts discovered multiple fractures in the ship's metal framework, not merely from the storm, but from design flaws and rushed construction. The Derbyshire was never truly unbreakable. It was a fragile giant, slowly crumbling under its own weight and the ocean's rage. As one hatch failed, the stress transferred to the next, creating a chain reaction of catastrophic structural failures. Air tanks exploded under immense pressure, and then, piece by piece, the great ship broke apart and slipped into the depths. Just like her sister ships, Liverpool Bridge and Kowloon Bridge, the Derbyshire too had fallen victim to the same fatal design flaws. These tragedies exposed the truth. The entire bridge class had inherent structural weaknesses. Experts also discovered that the storm had produced unusually high, rogue waves, exerting pressures far beyond what the hatches were designed to withstand. Those waves multiplied the load on the steel surface, tearing the metal apart until the hatches burst open one after another. When investigators examined different parts of the wreck, they found fractures even in the midsection and upper deck, showing this was not just a simple storm accident. It was the result of tiny design flaws and construction shortcuts that left the ship helpless against nature's force. Detailed studies of the hatches, tanks and engine room revealed that the forward hatch could withstand only 2 meters of water pressure, but that night the waves exerted 10 times that force. That first hatch shattered, triggering a domino effect. The second and third hatches collapsed in succession, flooding the entire forward section. Then, the rising hydrostatic pressure tore the ship apart from within. The investigation also cleared the crew of all blame. Captain Geoffrey Underhill and his men were completely innocent. They had followed every standard procedure, reducing speed, angling the bow into the waves, securing the cargo, and monitoring systems. But the disaster struck too suddenly, too violently. There was no time to send a mayday call or a distress signal. Imagine it, 42 men trapped in a steel fortress, collapsing around them, fighting for their lives in total darkness, some crushed by debris, some dragged into the cold, endless sea, some praying for rescue that would never come, all silenced by the storm. After the 1994 expedition, further research continued. In 2007, sailor and author Craig B. Smith confirmed the experts' findings. His study revealed that on that night, the ship endured wave pressures equivalent to a 20-meter wall of water, 10 times beyond design limits. These pressures created sudden impact spikes, known as Geifel peaks, powerful enough to fracture steel. Smith also documented that hydrodynamic pressures could have reached 5,650 kilopascals, or 500 metric tons per square meter, more than enough to rip the Derbyshire apart. It became clear this was not merely a natural disaster, it was also the result of human negligence, of design flaws, oversight, and a blind faith in engineering perfection. Following this revelation, the victims' families finally received civil compensation, and the tragedy led to major reforms in maritime safety standards. Stricter testing for hatch and hull strength, tougher inspection protocols, improved safety regulations for future OBO carriers. Memorials were built to honour the crew of the Derbyshire. On September 21st, 1980, the Bibby Line ship Cambridgeshire held a memorial service 49 at the site of the sinking. On the 20th anniversary, another service took place in Liverpool, England, attended by Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott. On the 30th anniversary, the maritime community and families gathered once more in remembrance. And finally, on September 15th, 2018, a permanent memorial was unveiled in the garden of the Church of Our Lady and St Nicholas, Liverpool, a lasting tribute to the 42 lives lost at sea. Friends, MV Derbyshire is no longer just a ship, it has become a symbol of safety, vigilance, and perseverance. Its lessons transformed ship design, construction, and the very mindset of the maritime industry. So, that was the story of the unsinkable ship, MV Derbyshire. If you enjoyed this story, do like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more such fascinating and informative tales from the sea and history. That's all for today. See you in the next video.